Every week when I go out to do socials, I say this will start at approximately 1 p.m. Basically, in case my baby starts crying at 12:59. But then I'll sit here at 12:59 or 12:29 or whatever, waiting for the clock to turn over to get us started, to dive us in. Hello, the Lord be with you. It is the ADHD Preacher's Workshop. I am the ADHD Preacher, and I am here today to. I'm trying this as a pitch. It was going to be the consistent, branding was this is a get ready with me / unboxing, but I'm trying it as just like a one-off. But that's what this is partially a get ready with me, get ready to preach, and partially an unboxing, because I have no idea what's about to happen. This could be anything. No idea. So let's go. Let's dive right in. Thank you for joining me, and let's get started as usual. We will start with a word of prayer. Gracious and heavenly God, we ask your blessings on this reading of your word, its interpretation. We ask that you, Lord, be present in our thoughts and in our feels and in our souls as we hear these words. We ask that you use them to transform us, to improve us, to make us better people, more your people. We ask that the words of our mouths and the meditations of all of our hearts be a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to you. Amen. I'm doing great, Sarah. How are you? This is one of those moments where I'm like, I know a number of Sarahs. Do I know Sarah Harris from somewhere? We'll find out. Somewhere IRL, as it were. We're done with January, February 2nd. Every week I'm going to say Control Alt left square bracket zooms in the text on a GDoc so that it doesn't look quite so stupid. I believe we're on the fourth Sunday after Epiphany. That sounds about right to me. Lectionary.vanderbilt.edu. Fourth Sunday after. I'm sorry. Whoa. That is some art right there. I often slide by. I'm not a visual person by default. I often slide by what's happening in the artwork on Lectionary. This is wild. This is some wild imagery. Thanks to Vandy, as ever, for putting this together. What do we got this week? We got Jeremiah, right at the opening of Jeremiah. We got Psalm 71, 1 through 6, 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 13. I don't know, man. I don't know. I might have read this one before. We'll see. Then we got Luke 4, 21 to 30. Let's rumble. No, I don't want that, I think. Yeah. All right. Jeremiah 1, 4 through 10. Jeremiah, a prophet to the nations, says my heading. Now, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I know you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, Ah, Lord God, truly I do not know how to speak, for I am only a boy. But the Lord said to me, Do not say, I am only a boy, for you shall go to all to whom I send you, and you shall speak whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, says the Lord. Then the Lord put out his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said to me, Now I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to pull down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. Nice little word from Jeremiah there. Thanks, Jeremiah. Nice little word from the Lord. Psalm 71, verses 1 through 6. In you, O Lord, I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness deliver me and rescue me. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be to me a rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Rescue me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and cruel. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth. From my birth I have leaned upon you, my protector since my mother's womb. My praise is continually of you. Okay. Something of a formula in the Psalms of like, Lord, I feel really good about you. Do nice stuff for me. I feel really good about you. Protect me from the bad folks. Yeah, I don't know. But we, once again, I think as I have noted previously, Sarah, if this is news to you, this is news to you, but I had a baby not that long ago, and this informs a great deal of my thinking. So when it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you, and then later I see, from my birth I have leaned upon you. These are relevant images to my life. All right. I'm gonna take a sip before I start this one because I don't know, I might trip. For those of you who are less plugged in to all the Bible stuff, 1 Corinthians 13 is kind of a classic. I have done enough weddings for people. This is the one that gets pulled out for weddings. It is like top 5, possibly probably top 1, easily top 3 wedding passages that people want. So from the NRSV, 1 Corinthians 1:1-13. If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now, we see only a reflection, as in a mirror, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. Now faith, hope, and love remain, these 3, and the greatest of these is love. I'll admit I got a little lost in verse 12 because there are any number of reasons to prefer this text or that text or this reading or that reading, but as in a glass darkly. As in a glass darkly. Just realized I did not do my transition button, so you don't know what I've been reading. I got to remind myself about that transition button. Yeah, as in a glass darkly, guys. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. That's not a modern idiom. It won't make any sense to your listeners. But as in a glass darkly. Luke chapter 4, verses 21-30. The prophet Jesus not accepted. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. And they said, "Is this not Joseph's son?" And he said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we've heard that you did at Capernaum.' And he said, 'Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in his hometown. But the truth is There were many widows in Israel at the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine over all the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them, except to a widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many with a skin disease in Israel at the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed, except Naaman the Syrian. And when they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up, drove him out of town, and led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. The word of the Lord. What was last week's? What did we do last week? Yeah, we did 14 to 21, and we included 21 last week. So we've seen this. Today, the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. We've heard that now twice in a row, which I think is a little unusual for the lectionary to do that. All right. I have thinks. I was explaining to somebody the structure of how this works. And by somebody, I mean LinkedIn. And I said, that I read it once, and I try to keep it pretty clean read. Not a lot of spin on it. And then I read it again with more interpretation, and then I do the usually Greek deep dive, and so it proves today that nope, shift V, there we go. I would like to know what starts off that Jeremiah passage. I think the rest of it's probably fine. I don't need more of the Psalm that I'm getting. I don't need more of the Corinthians that I'm getting. I do not. This is a weird day. I'm just mostly gonna read the texts by themselves without a bunch of extra content. All right. And in the Common English Bible, I believe the Vandy lectionary uses the NRSV. But all right, and thank you to Enemy K, who's not on today, but Enemy K is the one who put me on to, hey, you can do print mode, and then you don't have to deal with a bunch of stuff. These are the words of Jeremiah, Hilkiah's son, who was one of the priests from Anathoth in the land of Benjamin. The Lord's word came to Jeremiah. This is why English is the worst language. This should either be the Lord's word or the Lord's word. Why is it? The Lord's word came to Jeremiah in the 13th year of Judah's king Josiah, son of Ammon, and throughout the rule of Judah's king Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, until the 5th month of the 11th year of King Zedekiah, Josiah's son, when the people of Jerusalem were taken into exile. So, and exile. So this is, there's two different absolutely shattering events in the history of Israel. I mean, there's a lot of them, but there's two that come up in the prophets. There's the exile and the captivity. And the exile is to Persia, and it is what Esther is about, and the captivity is to Babylon, and it is what Daniel is about, I think. And I'm interested now. I believe those are the two, like, there's something with the words that are used there in Hebrew that leads to that distinction. So, but as we've discovered, I am not a scholar of Hebrew. The Lord's word came to me. Before I created you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I made you a prophet to the nations. Lord God, I said, I don't know how to speak because I'm only a child. And the Lord responded, don't say I'm only a child. Where I send you, you must go. What I tell you, you must say. Don't be afraid of them, because I'm with you to rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord stretched out his hand, touched my mouth, and said to me, I'm putting my words in your mouth. This very day I appoint you over nations and empires to dig up and pull down, to destroy and demolish, to build and plant. Okay, that was bothering me. Hebrew is very much about floating opposites. And so I was like bothered by, why is it dig up and pull down, destroy and demolish, but it's to build and plant. And I just slid over that last time. It is worth flagging here. Lord stretched out his hand, touched my mouth, and said to me, I'm putting my words in your mouth. The touching of people's mouths is like an extremely important biblical, like something similar happens with Moses, I think. But something absolutely similar happens with Isaiah. I'm going to have to check myself on Moses. The door frame shook at the sound of their shouting, and I said, mourn for me, I'm ruined, I'm a man with unclean lips, and I live among a people with unclean lips. Yet I've seen the King, the Lord of heavenly forces. Then one of the winged creatures flew to me, holding a glowing coal. He touched my mouth. Generally, I see this translated, and it includes prominently, he touched my mouth with the coal. And said, see, this has touched your lips, your guilt has departed, and your sin is removed. So this is the, like, this is nice. Like, the Lord stretched out his hand and touched my mouth. Like, that's, don't speak. Or rather, speak what I tell you to say. The Isaiah version is a lot more. Okay. Let's see how hard this is to find. Yeah. Yeah. This is great. Okay, this is good, but where are my profits at? Okay. Prophets and kings of Judah and Israel. Okay. All right. Here are the prophets and the kings they go with. Syria, Babylon, and Persia. Maybe this is the thing where, like, the end of the captivity in Babylon is sort of right, like, Nebuchadnezzar. And then the Persian captivity, or the Persian exile, starts with, Okay, so Josiah's reform is in 632. Right before the Babylonian captivity. Fall in Jerusalem in 586. All right, 50 years before, never mind. All right, and then Babylon falls in 539. And Ezra and Nehemiah return in the mid 400s. Okay. That's actually, I could have been much more courteous about that. Open image, a new tab. All right. So, yeah. All right. So Jerusalem falls in 586. No, I didn't want this one. I wanted this one. Open image, a new tab. Yeah, this is better. Jerusalem falls in 586. Daniel, so right at the end, like Jeremiah's end, and Ezekiel and Obadiah. Right. So Isaiah is quite a bit earlier than Jeremiah. Okay, and Amos sort of was talking to kings of both nations. Okay, cool. Not bad. Very good. In other related news, notice this name. Nahum. This is going to become relevant almost immediately. Right. Okay, so Jeremiah is called to be a prophet, and he is a prophet for like a long time. Like the period of his prophesying is 40 to 60 years, something like that, leading to the fall of Jerusalem in 586, and a little bit afterwards, with some asterisks on who is this Jeremiah. Until the 5th month, the 11th year of Zedekiah, Josiah's son. Yeah. I do. I miss, again, I was talking about this last week. I used to have a teen adventure Bible that had like the list of the kings and their relationships and their order and how good they were color coded. Um, and I could use it now. It'd be great. Psalm 71. I've taken refuge in you, Lord. Don't let me ever be put to shame. Deliver me and rescue me by your righteousness. Bend your ear toward me and save me. Be my rock of refuge where I can always escape. You commanded that my life be saved because you are my rock and my fortress. My God, rescue me from the power of the wicked. Rescue me from the grip of the wrongdoer and the oppressor because you are my hope, Lord. You, Lord, are the one I've trusted since childhood. I've depended on you from birth. You cut the cord when I came from my mother's womb. My praise is always about you. Whoa. Uh-huh. Man, translations. And it's harder for me when it's Hebrew because I don't know Hebrew. But that's a very different read there. Rescue me from the power of the wicked. Rescue me from the grip of the wrongdoer and the oppressor because you are my hope, Lord. You, Lord, are the one I've trusted since childhood, like Jeremiah, the prophet, as a boy. I've depended on you from birth. You cut the cord when I came from my mother's womb. My praise is always about you. Right. It is so hard to find things to say about 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in tongues of human beings and of angels, but I don't have love, I'm a clanging gong or a clashing cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and I know all the mysteries and everything else, and if I have such complete faith that I can move mountains, but I don't have love, I am nothing. If I give away everything that I have and hand over my body to feel good about what I've done, but I don't have love, I receive no benefit whatsoever. Love is patient, love is kind, it isn't jealous, it doesn't brag, it isn't arrogant, it isn't rude, it doesn't seek its own advantage. It isn't irritable. It doesn't keep a record of complaints. It isn't happy with injustice, but it is happy with the truth. Love puts up with all things, trusts in all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Love never fails. As for prophecies, they will be brought to an end. As for tongues, they will stop. As for knowledge, it will be brought to an end. We know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, what is partial shall be brought to an end. When I was a child, I used to speak like a child, reason like a child, think like a child, but now that I've become a man, I've put an end to childish things. Now we see a reflection in a mirror, then we will see face to face. Now I know partially, but then I will know completely in the same way that I have been completely known. Now faith, hope, and love remain, these three things, and the greatest of these is love. Before I created you in the womb. I think there's something here, and we're going to read Luke, and then we'll see how I feel about it. But I think there's something here about complete knowledge and being completely known. I definitely have a problem where I think that especially as I've gotten involved more and more in disability advocacy, and as I have leaned into my own ADHD diagnosis, I have struggled with what it means that God knew me completely from an early age. Like, what does it mean that God knew me completely and knew that my brain, early in the diagnosis for the ADHD process, it was like that my brain was broken, and now it's become that my brain is not well adapted to modern life. And I'm still real-ish about it. I said I was not going to do this. I am going to do this real quick. I am going to go back and reread last week's lectionary, the passage about what Jesus says here. Then Jesus, in the power of the Spirit, returned to Galilee, and a report about him spread through all the surrounding region. He began to teach in their synagogues and was praised by everyone. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." And then everyone was raving about Jesus. So impressed were they by the gracious words flowing from his lips. And they said, "This is Joseph's son, isn't it?" Then Jesus said to them, "Undoubtedly you will quote this saying to me, 'Doctor, heal yourself.'" Which as I said, this usually is more interpretation. In my recollection is that in Greek, this is really snappy. It's something like physician, physic yourself, like healer, heal yourself. And so it has a little more snap to it than it comes out in English with the repetition. But we'll double check. "Do here in your hometown what we've heard you did in Capernaum." All right. I went to Capernaum as part of a trip in Israel. It was great. It was a really good trip. My favorite thing was in Kafarnahum. That's the Hebrew, Kafarnahum, and I think it's quite close to the Arabic. Kafar is a word that means something like village or town, and Nahum is Nahum. So Jesus' ministry starts in the village of Nahum. Like he's on this prophet who, well, let's go back to our prophet's timeline. Nahum was early, not the earliest of the prophets that we have in the Bible, but like real early. He's after Isaiah, but like connecting Jesus's ministry with this dude who like did some pretty kickin' prophecies, and with Isaiah, and like this is strong game. So Jesus is doing this ministry in Capernaum, Capernaum, where he calls most of the disciples on the shores of Galilee, like right there. And Jesus said, "I assure you that no prophet is welcome in the prophet's hometown, and I can assure you that there were many widows." Okay, so this is one of those moments where I have in the can on my hard drive a sermon that I preached for the internets, and I edited for the internets, and I can't figure out how to get it out of Blender, which is a me problem, not a you problem. But what I said in short, if you love the Bible, and subtext also, if you love the Constitution, if you love the Bible and the Constitution, there are three things you should do. The first one is read it. The third one is do what it says. But the second one is really important, and it is listen to people who have studied the text that you love and have like dug into it. Listen to them when they give you interpretation and explain what's going on, because if you don't, you miss the point, or at least not even the point, but like some points. Like there's a whole bunch of important stuff, because if you don't know who Elijah and the widow of Zarephath and Naaman the Syrian, Elisha and Naaman the Syrian, if you don't know who these people are and why it matters that Jesus is bringing them up, these are just names. It's just content without, like, it's noise without signal. If you've gone to school or you've done the hard study, then you will know that Elijah is a prophet. Oh, Elijah. If Elijah shows up on this list and he doesn't, he's sort of right at the, like, he's early, pre-Kings, like really, really early in the process. And he doesn't show up here. He is a prophet, but he's like a super prophet. So Elijah, this great mythical historical prophet, this dope guy, Elijah, was starving, as was everybody else, because there'd been a terrible famine. The Lord sent Elijah to a widow, and the widow had a heartbreaking little story about, like, she has a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil. She's going to make them into a cake, She and her son are going to eat like the last of her oil and flour. She and her son are going to eat the cake that she's going to make with the last of her oil and flour, and then they're going to die. That is her plan. Like, that's the thing. She's a widow in Israel at this time. Widows can't participate in agriculture. They can't farm. So they are like, they can't participate in the economy. Wives apparently can, but widows, there's really nothing you can do because you're not supposed to sort of go out. So widows are entirely dependent on charity. And in fact, there's some really cool stuff about charity. So this is there were many widows. There were many women struggling financially because their husbands, like, they didn't have husbands, and so they were going to starve. Elijah went to not a widow in Israel, not a widow of God's chosen people, the Hebrews, but to a widow in Zarephath in the region of Sidon. Guys, Sidon is the bad guys. Tyre and Sidon are fabulously wealthy city-states on the coast. I'm going to check myself here on that last part. Tyre absolutely is. And you know that because, so Sidon is the third largest city in Lebanon. It's right here on the coast. It's in what is now Lebanon. This is Israel down here. It's the west bank of the Jordan. So, like, Sidon over here in Lebanon, that is, here's a little bit more context. It's right here. These two city-states, Tyre and Sidon, are kind of always mentioned together. Because they are deeply connected economically, and crucially, Sidon is Tyre is famous for being the producer of purple dye, indigo dye, from the shells of local mollusks, and they'd made a ton of money on being like the purple dye people, and Sidon is like intimately connected with them. I'm digging a little deeper than I should, and I will need to go back and check myself on this. But the essential point is, this wasn't a Hebrew woman. Or maybe she was, but she was way out of her context. How did she end up in Sidon? Did she marry not a Hebrew man? So like, there's a whole layer of like Elijah was sent not to one of his own people, not the Hebrews, but to a widow of another nation. And then were a ton of people with skin diseases in Israel during the time of the prophet Elisha. Elisha was the Luke Skywalker to Elijah's Obi-Wan Kenobi, immediate next sort of prophet. There were tons of people with skin diseases, and what the Bible traditionally would have called leprosy encompassed a bunch of like eczema and psoriasis would have been qualified as skin diseases and would have been like justification for being I want to say eliminated, shunned, like removed from society. Like, oh man, I forgot to moisturize. Like, they were super freaked out about leprosy for legitimate reasons, because leprosy, without antibiotics, leprosy will mess you up real bad. So there were tons of people with skin diseases in Israel during the time of the prophet Elisha, but none of those were cleansed. Instead, Naaman, a general from another country, a Syrian, not a Hebrew, received cleansing from Elisha. Luke, always, remember, is... So the four Gospels each have their own audience. Matthew is written to Jewish people. Mark is written to kind of everybody, but also to Jewish people, but also to like to people who need to be smacked up upside the head to do better. John is written to Hebrews in the process of becoming non-Hebrews, like children of Israel who are leaving Judaism on behalf, like, to follow the way, to follow Christ. Luke is written to Gentiles. Luke is written for Greeks and Romans who and other non-Jewish people to say Jesus is for you too. So here's Luke rocking with Jesus and saying, hey, You know who's cool? Not Jewish people are cool. Like, at least they're fine. They are acceptable. All right. So, cool. So this is a little bit like my head is full of politics in the world, which is a thing. Um, so I try to manage that, and I might need to start putting content warnings up. But this is a little bit like a kid coming home after going to school for a while and having done some fairly remarkable things, comes home and says, y'all are not that in a bag of potato chips. You know who's great is like the Canadians. Like, other people are awesome. And God apparently loves sometimes other people more than his chosen people. And that is not a message that is well received in Nazareth at the time. When they heard this, everyone in the synagogue was filled with anger. They rose up and they ran him out of town. They led him to the crest of the hill on which their town had been built so they could throw him off the cliff. But he passed through the crowd. He passed through the crowd and went on his way. Yeah, Nazareth is Nazareth is in a hilly part of, like, the area above Galilee is pretty hilly. So, like, totally sensible that they would be like, oh man, this kid is talking trash. Let's throw him off a thing. We have things off of which to throw him. So yeah, I think the sermon is about how we are completely known. And it's weird not to use 139, Psalm 139 for this. But I think the sermon is about how, like, part of what I think must have been frustrating for the synagogue crowd in Luke 4 is that, like, they remember this kid when he was, like, kicking rocks down the street. Like, they remember this child when he was a child. And they know him. Knowing somebody, like, again, my context informs I have this baby. And my wife and I know this baby better than anyone else could possibly know him. And we know him better. Certainly we know him better than he knows himself. Like, he doesn't know what he's... He has barely mastered, a dozen body parts. Like, we know him in ways that he doesn't know how to know himself. And I submit, so far, I know my kid better than I've ever known anybody else. And I think adults who watch children grow up intimately know those children better than other people know them. So, like, this community thinks they know who Jesus is and what he's about, because they watched him grow up. They watched him go through all these steps, and they knew him when he didn't know himself. There's every reason to think that between, like, the last we hear of Jesus as a child is basically him in Jerusalem scaring the crap out of his parents by, like, disappearing. He then shows up, like, 18 years later, almost 2 decades later, and starts doing ministry. That gap there's a lot of speculation about what exactly he was doing during that time, but I think we can say definitively he went out and got himself some learning. He went out and learned some stuff, and changed in ways that his community wasn't prepared for. But the point there being, as much as they thought they did, his community didn't know him, partially because of the experiences that he had and partially because they didn't understand who he really was. In the same way, there's the strong implication is that God knows us completely in a way that is not accessible to other people. So I think that's the sermon. I think the sermon is about, and I think that's the sermon. Okay. I am I'm getting good at this in terms of the 25 minute, like 35 minute. I really am spending the first half on just the texts, and then we do the deep dive into the Greek. And it is a deep dive. I keep every week. I think I should really get back into the Hebrew. Nope, it's not happening. Certainly, it's not happening live. It's not going to happen while people are watching. I am interested today in what's going on. Oh. Completely known, but I'm also thinking Gracht, if you're familiar with Gracht as a concept. I hadn't really thought of Heinlein sort of riffing on a thing that's very common in the Bible. All right. And then now we read it again, the King James we have available to us. All right. So somebody asked me a while ago, like, what language is that you're reading? This is Greek. This is biblical Greek. This is a language that Jesus very likely knew some words in. It was the Greek was the lingua franca of the Roman Empire at the time. He probably spoke some Greek. And the gospel writers wrote in Greek. Jesus probably said most of the things that he said in Aramaic. But the gospels were probably originally in Aramaic. But by the time, a couple decades later that they were writing all this down, Aramaic was no longer as relevant to the audiences that they needed to reach. So, Antisglosais, even though with the tongues of men I speak and the ones of angels. If I don't have, even if, although with the tongues of anthropon, lalo, I speak with the tongues of men, and when you get that ton anthropon, ton angelon, double, the strong implication is that it sort of repeats itself. So even if I speak with the tongues of men and those of angels, if I don't have agape, so the New Testament Greek uses 3 different words, and Greek sort of deals with 3 different words, all of which get shoved under the English concept of love. There is philos, brothership, like fellow feeling, kindredness, friendship. There's eros, desire, romantic, erotic love, and then there's agape, spiritual love. It's been a while, and yeah, the King James translate this as charity, which like they have a word in Greek for charity. It's charitas. Like it's, it's not. You don't need to do it that way. From agapao, which from agon, much, or see also, perhaps from agon, agape, of persons to welcome, to entertain, to be fond of, to love dearly, of things to be well pleased, to be contented at or with a thing. To love in a social or moral sense. And I sort of want to hear, so this is one of those, every week we do this. I go, all right, that's what Strong's has to say. Strong's is a little short-sighted, tunnel vision. Agapao. Okay. Proto-Indo-European etymology is a compound, minga pe, from mega, basically great, and pe, to protect. Literally provide great protection. It was proposed by 91. Previous scholars have proposed non-Indo-European comparisons. Semantically, Semitic offers a match in Hebrew, ahav, and Arabic ahaba. The Semitic in turn is suggested by Paul Levin to be borrowing since the Hebrew variant has a variant agav, also Ugaritic, deviates from the form. But it must be admonished against this that the root ahavav is well developed and well used in Arabic. Ah, okay. Yeah. So, oh, okay. So this is what I really wanted was Paul went to school. Paul did grammar school. Paul learned Latin, certainly to some extent, and Greek, and he read the classics. 100%, no question. He definitely read Plato. He has almost certainly read Aeschylus and Sophocles and Euripides. So tragic Greek, to show affection for the dead, that makes a lot of sense. To be beloved, to caress, to pet, to be pleased with, to take pleasure in, to show brotherly love, or agape to. And that's the New Testament. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And Stergo is another one that shows up. It's interesting that it was not one that was taught to me, possibly because it just doesn't show up that much. But let's just say with some confidence that agapao means to love with a layer on it of show affection for the dead is there's a lot of tragic Greek stuff of people like not just being sad but like doing actions just to support their beloved dead. Okay, so every time love shows up in 1 Corinthians 13, it is talking about this affection that is not necessarily romantic or sexual. It is also not necessarily like friendly or desirous. It does have the possibility of a sense of like to protect greatly. See how we feel about that. All right. But if echo me agapon, if I don't have love, I have become halchos. Halchos being brass, but also bronze, I think. Is metal being chiefly used for that purpose? Well, what's the word for bronze? Because if my no, that's not what I want to be doing. Copper alloyed with tin, bronze, right? And brass would also fit into that. That's weird. And notice that both of our translations have a clanging gong or a crashing cymbal, and both of them miss. Like, I have become a sounding brass. Yes, yeah. Like they sort of bounce off the like it's a metal. Or symbolon. Alaladzon. Echon, and I think echon here is the same root as echo, or a tinkling cymbal. I would not have done that with alaladzon, probably. Tinkling. I mean, it has a nice little. That's the word I'm looking for. Noise. It makes the sound. It's onomatopoetic. Onomatopoetic. A little bit. But like, gegona chalkosechon. A symbolon alaladzon. Interesting sounds going on there. Okay. And even if I have propheteon, even if I have prophecies and I know the mysteries, all the, and I know all the mysteries and all the knowledge, and even if I have all the faith, hoste, in order that so that Mephistonen, that I could remove, that I could make to stand somewhere else, ore, the mountains. If I don't have love, I am not a thing. Not a lot of layers there. Like, there's a lot of fun in, I do like Mephistonen, like, to make them stand someplace else. The ore. It's weird. Yeah. Accusative plural. That's a weird accusative plural for an oros. That's weird. All right. And even if I bestow to feed, I everything, all the things, all my goods, I bestow them to feed presumed the poor. Yeah, and I wonder if Somiso has that, like, that sort of vibe of Somion, a fragment, a bit of morsel. I'm sorry, what just happened? To feed by putting a bit of a crumb in the mouth of infants, young animals, to feed, to nourish, to give a thing, to feed someone, to feed out to. So yeah, you sort of have to presume the poor in the text there, or the thing doesn't make sense. And it doesn't really show up in the... If I give away everything that I have to feed the poor. Let's get back to another place. Give away all my possessions. Yeah, I think the King James is presuming a lot that is not showing up in the other translations. But it's like, if I give away all of the goods of me, if I give away all my stuff, and even if parado I give, and it's interesting, a different, Somiso here has a definite sense of I feed, whereas parado has something more of like I give away, or hand over. Actually, is quite good. If I give over my body unto the Kauthesomai to be burned. Yeah, see, this is where your modern Nabi Panduri translations sort of soften the, like, and hand over my own body to feel good about what I've done. Hand over my body to the flames so that I may boast. And now I need to double check that that's actually what's going on with Kauthesomai. 25, 45. Apparently a primary verb. No. Oh, Kaiwo. Okay. Set on fire to light. Yeah. This is not ambiguous, guys. This is to burn with cognates such as Lithuanian. To light, to kindle, to set on fire. Guys, this is not a mystery. No, y'all are yeeting yourselves out of the text. And if I give over my body in order that, and I think it's, I might be burned, but I don't have, what? It profiteth me nothing. Why? somebody is 1 Corinthians 13:3. I need commentary. So what's happening over in my head is both the NRSV and the Common English are saying, if I give away all my possessions and if I hand over my body so that I may boast. And the CEB has to hand over my body to feel good about what I've done. Both of which sound like you're saying something like, so this kathesomai, you are not reading the root here as kaio, to burn. You're reading a different verb here. And I'm not too mad about that because what is going on with this verb? Why would this be happening? And I'm sorry if I'm not talking as much as I should be. Katharizo. Clean, pure, to cleanse, to purge, to purify, probably, presumably with fire, is the ancient Greek. Clean, pure, katharos of cathartic, right? Yeah, not necessarily from the, okay. What's that upsilon doing in there? Okay, so, for those keeping track at home. Kauthesomai. This is weird. That upsilon, that third letter that looks like a U, that shouldn't be there. And the verb construction of in order that I might do something, or it's I might, yeah. So I actually have to reach for a Dead Tree book. Ask me how I feel about reaching for Dead Tree books. Stretching my hand all the way up to my shelf. Okay, so this is my Pocket Interlinear New Testament. Yeah. All right. Okay. Melting into my chair because now I'm going to have to do something I really don't want to do, which is I am going to go to Blue Sky and say, hey, Blue Sky, what the heck is going on? Because this is super weird. What's going on? So, okay, Pastors Blue Sky, what's going on with 1 Corinthians 13:3? Kathesomai. I'm having trouble parsing the verb. And indeed figuring out what verb is even happening here. I'm sure this leads to the translation differences of CEB, NRSV, CEB on the one hand and KJV on L. On the others. Okay. I'm gonna see how Blue Sky is doing at like if enough of my woke lady pastors and others are hanging out to be like, hey. Up until this point, up until this very literal minute, the fact that I haven't moved all of my commentaries and stuff upstairs from the basement has not been a problem. But right now, this very minute is the minute where I say I probably need to move my commentaries and stuff upstairs because this is gonna bother me forever. Not forever. This is gonna bother me for a while. Okay, kayo, apparently a primary verb. Kayatai, future passive subjunctive. But what's that? But what's the upsilon doing in there? Okay. Future kauthesomai. All right. Well, that's strong. Okay, I would prefer. Can anybody send me to? Because sometimes it does send me to Little and Scott, which is what I'd prefer. Or sorry, this is Thayer's Greek Lexicon. Previous strongs, next strongs, OT. Okay. And my middle little is not handy. Where am I going? Perseus. All right. And we go to collections and texts, and we go to Greek and Roman materials, and we go to Liddell. Liddell and Scott's. Let's do the full LSJ. And we go to Kappa, and we're right at the beginning of Kappa. If this is looking super tiny to you, that is because it is super tiny. I need maybe one before this because I need Kaio. New. Sorry, I need nope. That was a rookie mistake. That was me forgetting how Greek works. Kaiwo. Kaiwo. And I keep saying Kaiwo because I presume there's no solid reality to this, but I presume that there should be a digamma in there just because that's the way that things normally work. I may have a baby. We'll see. Purapola. Kaiwo. Attic. Kao. To kindle, to burn. But give me the future. Kaosomai. Okay. Attic. Epic. Future. Kauso. But there's no theta in here. Passive future. Kauthesomai. First, singular, future, indicative, passive. In order that I might be burned. And that's what I've got here, right? Not. Okay. I am waiting for the pastors of Blue Sky to tell me why we're not why we're not taking that more seriously. All right. Okay, I need to jump ahead because I'm running low on time, and also there might be a baby. Uh, but I need to check one thing, and then I need to do another thing. Charity never fails. All right, so Hotan, but when is come the complete teleon? So this is a subtlety. Um, so perfect is a Greek word that means made all the way through, and it means complete is the actual meaning of the word perfect. And teleon means like worked out till the end. Oh man, that is a short nap for my baby. And he did not sleep in last night. He went late. Babies are hard, man. All right. Give that a minute. He's not actually distressed yet. Let's give him a minute to work himself up. When has come the teleon? Tote. When has come the complete? Then that thing. Katarge theitsetai shall be done away with. Argeo, katargeo, and which is ergeo, probably. Argeo, from Argos, to be idle, inactive, to linger, delay, and this seems to imply to like, oh wow, to render idle. Interesting. Or to cause to cease to put an end away with. So this has sort of a thing of like, when the perfect has come, is come, then that which is merus, ek merus, is in part. From sorry, that's what I wanted. A section or an alignment, which I feel like we have run into Meros and Meromai of late. So that which is partial, that which is in part, is in part. Yeah, this is Greek. The way that Greek does this is from part rather than in part. Shall be like sunset is the word that I would use for my tech days, or like decommissioned. The partial, yeah. When the perfect has arrived, that which is partial will be decommissioned. And then this is the part that I need the most to do the sermon that I'm likely to do. All right. For now we see through an through a glass in enigmati. Darkly is not the word I would have said that. Einos. Okay. That is the sound of my baby needing me to be done doing what I'm doing. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me. And anybody else who ducked in. Nice to have you. I hope you found this all informative. Here, I'm actually gonna... no, that's body. I want to go to this. Thanks for joining me. This was lovely. I hope that you found something contentful here. Every week we do this, and there's supposed to be a sermon that comes out of it that I preach and put on YouTube. We'll see how that goes this week. But have a wonderful day. God bless. Good vibes. See you next time.